name is Don Etherington, and we're here to discuss the experiences of my childhood in London, particularly when the Blitz was on. Interestingly, the beginning of the war, we didn't think much about it. The war started in '39 and I was 4. But the Germans were bombing the hell out of us. But, because I was in London, where it got bombed extensively. We lived near a railroad line that went from London up north. It was one of the lines for freight, And I think the Germans were trying to bomb that railroad line near where, when I say near, it was 50 yards away. Interesting thing about the rain, which I had never experienced before, when you have an explosion or a bomb, it doesn't blow out, everything implodes in. So the winds come in and everything then is covered with sugar and salt. Somehow it bursts everything open. Supposedly the rule was after a certain time, let's say 9 o'clock or 8 o'clock, you had to go and stay in the shelters. That was what you're supposed to do, right? Now many people, including my mother and father, didn't always do that. They didn't want to go in the shelter. So they would send my sister and I down to the shelter. I used to go around collecting shrapnel from the German bombs with the markings on it, just for fun with a shopping bag, and just after the raid. I come from the streets, so I wasn't a cloistered young man. I was in the shelters at night and lived in a poor area of London. So we were in a block of apartments, and there were 5 stories, I think, at one tall, not like in the States, but we had shelters in where the apartments were, right? Next to the apartments. And they would have a shelter that would take maybe 50 people at a time, and maybe a warden or a person designated to look after us was at the door of the shelter, and he might say something like, well, they're going to bomb Hammersmith, because you could tell by the bombs the way they come in the sound, and then it cuts off the sound, and then when you're good at it, not me, but they would say that one's going to fall on Hammersmith, or this one's going to fall on Kensington. So that was really what they used to tell us. But we got bombed where we lived in an apartment. I think it was a doodlebug. It would come over, hit the corner of the building where we lived, went from there into the shelter that killed 73 of my school friends, and bounced, if you like. I say bounced, I'm not certain of what you call it, and then it went into the school. In the morning, climbed the lamppost around the school shouting, "No school today, teach," when the teachers arrive in. As a child you react differently, I think. but I mean, I can only talk about myself, you know. But, so it was an experience. What they call evacuated to a place called Leeds, which is strange because it's a big city up north. And why they would send us all to a big city, one never knows, but anyway. And then when you arrive at the Leeds station, they all take you and put us in a church hall where overnight we laid on the floor. And then in the morning, mainly women, would come and select whatever child they want. And of course they got paid a small amount to look after us. And it was in a poor neighbourhood of Leeds where I was. The house where I was staying with this lady, Mrs. Wilson, I think her name was, when you had to go to the bathroom, you had to go out the back door into a shed. You know, if it's at night, it's totally dark, and as a young child, that was more traumatic than going through the bomb. So I was in Leeds for about 6 months, and but I didn't stay long. 6 months was long enough, so I came back and spent the rest of the wartime in London. So I was there on VE Day when the war ended. A woman in the RAF running through the corridors to tell the people on the train that the war had just been declared over. So that was going to be a big celebration. And on VE Day, all the kids where I lived, we all went into the school that was bombed, and we started collecting wood from the roof, you know, the beams and things, and to make a big bonfire. And while we were doing that, somebody threw a piece of these big long beams down and it hit my foot. So I thought, great. So now my sister has to take me in a wheel to the hospital and got my foot fixed. And then I came back. The fire, I think, had been started, but I didn't lose much of the celebrations. But so that was a big moment. But when I think about it, of course, now, the 6 years of the war, it went in a flash, in a sense. You're not thinking, oh, why don't we stop this? You don't think that way as a child. So you're getting a child's perspective. If I'd have been my age at the wartime, maybe I would have a completely different perspective on how we all thought and what we thought. It was all a very positive thing. We never thought about losing. So we had a positive attitude. I think that helps a lot. I did my early training and I became a conservator. So I've been doing conservation now for 40, 50 years. But I'm pretty well known in the conservation field. And so I've done things like the 1297 Magna Carta that was bought by Ross Perot. Worked on the Declaration of Independence in Washington.
Mother dear, I'm writing you from somewhere in France, hoping this finds you well.
Sergeant says I'm doing fine, a soldier and a half. Here's a song that we'll all sing, it'll make you laugh.
We're gonna hang out the washing on the sea.